This is The High Road with author and registered psychotherapist, Dr. Marlene Bishop. Dr. Marlene speaks to the heart of people who need to be lifted up and get out of the muck and mire that often accompanies major life changes, such as divorce or separation. Dr. Marlene will aspire to help parents of divorce to love their children more than they hate their ex, and to learn to take the high road. So please welcome the host of The High Road, Dr. Marlene.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. George, well, first of all, welcome. Glad you're with us once again.
Great to be with you, Dr. Marlene. Always a great learning experience, and good morning in our time zone.
Yes, that's right. It is morning here. How did we ever get set in the morning? I'm not a morning person. So I don't know how we ever did that. You're not either?
I'm not a morning person either. No, I'm a night owl.
Oh, okay. There you go. I like to be up in the morning. I don't like to be having to do anything, except at home. But anyway, okay, that's not what we're here for, believe it or not. But we have a really, really good topic today. And we've talked about this before, but we're going to talk about keeping kids out of the middle of what's going on. And that sounds real easy. And it is so hard. And it's hard for a lot of reasons. And first of all, you and I have talked about this before, that kids will absolutely eavesdrop, sneak around, read your texts, read your emails if you leave your computer open, listen in on conversations. I was actually in a home years ago doing an evaluation, and I'm talking to this dad, and I'm kind of telling him to lower his voice. And I said, well, I don't want your son to hear. And he said, oh, he's upstairs in his room with the door shut. And I said, are you sure? And he said, yes. And I go over and I look up the stairway, and sitting at the top of the stairs, listening to every word we say, is his son. And I go, to your room now. And the dad goes, you're kidding. He was sitting there. I'm like, yes. We know this. Parents don't. And I can't emphasize that enough. We know that kids are going to listen. Our clients don't get that. The parents don't think the kids are going to eavesdrop, snoop, things like that. And they absolutely are. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. Kids are curious by nature. They are sensitive, I think, to their parents' squabbles. They don't want to be caught up in the middle of it. I would imagine that a lot of kids, you hear from a lot of kids, I wish my parents would just stop fighting.
Right, right. Yes, in fact, that makes me think of a little gal that I talked to in November. I still remember when it was, this last November at her school, and she begged for me to make her dad and stepmom stop fighting. And she's going, why do they fight? They fight all the time. Can you just make them stop fighting? Why do they have to fight all the time? Can you make them stop? I mean, this went on, ripped my heart out because this little girl was so distressed. But I think the biggest reason, this is my theory, the biggest reason kids eavesdrop so much is this affects their lives. They want to know what's going on in their lives. If it affects just mom and dad, they don't care. But if it affects their lives, they care. And so if a parent has a meeting with an attorney or they have a court date, but it's not going to affect what happens with the child, I have found that the kids could care less. But if they know we're talking about parenting time, they know the schedule or how much time they spend with each parent is going to be addressed. Now they care. Now they're going to listen in on every conversation because it affects their lives.
Well, and I think it's difficult sometimes for parents to understand, particularly when they're really caught up in the fray. Rule number one is you don't bring your kids to court.
Right. Yes. Yes. I taught the co-parenting class last night, and somebody was talking about that, about bringing kids, do you bring kids to court? And I said, absolutely not. And I told my story of the first time, not the only time, but the first time I had a judge excuse an adult child from the courtroom. He said, who's the young man at the back of the courtroom? And one of the parents said, oh, that's our son, but he's an adult. He's 20 or whatever his age was. And the judge nicely looked at him and said, well, looked at the parents first and said, I don't care that he's an adult. Looked at the young man and said, I'm going to ask you to wait out in the hall. You don't ever need to hear about your parents' conflict. And it is so true. At any age, kids don't need to hear about their parents' conflict, but especially when they start bringing minors to court. I had an 8-year-old ask me yesterday, will I have to go to court and talk to the judge? And I said, no, absolutely not. And I could see the relief on her, when I said no. But yes, kids do not belong in a courtroom.
No, they deserve a voice, but not a seat at the table.
Correct.
And I think
Correct. And
most of the time that voice is best expressed through a mental health professional.
yes, and I would agree, because we know how to interview kids, and we know what kids' needs are, and we understand, family dynamics and children's needs and mental health issues, subtle things that other people might miss. We understand that stuff. I mean, that's our area of expertise, which is a good segue to talk about next week's show, because next week's show, we're actually going to do a review of the different mental health professionals in the courts, what their roles are, what the mental health professionals' roles are in the courts. I think a lot of people are confused by that. They're uncertain. And it's all acronyms, a CFI and a PRE and a PCDM and a CLR. And they don't know what all those things mean. So we're going to educate everyone next week about that. And so if you're interested in that, make sure you tune in. But yes, I think kids' needs and wishes can best be conveyed to the court through mental health professionals. That's for sure, but they don't need to go to court. That's for sure.
No, it has to be destructive for a child to go to court. There are very limited, very rare exceptions.
Yeah.
I am familiar with a few cases where a judge has interviewed a child in chambers. The child is usually into the middle teenage years, but it's really kind of sad to watch when the judge is interviewing a child about his or her parents and their behaviors.
Yes. Yes, it really is. And, we as adults are nervous in the courtroom. Why would kids not be? I mean, it's just not a place for kids.
No, and I've had clients that are very, very nervous and uncomfortable about a courtroom or talking to the judge. And I would try to desensitize that. I would take clients to a courtroom that is empty and let them see what it's all about and familiarize themselves with the furniture and the furnishings and where the bench is and where counsel table is. And it seemed to help a little bit desensitizing people. But the courtroom for most people is kind of a scary place.
Yes. It is. And the witness stand is especially scary.
It is, and we're going to do everything we can to discredit the opposing party.
Hmm.
So to have a child listen to lawyers run down both of their parents and question their parental abilities and dedication and so forth, it just has to be destructive for the child.
Yes, yes. And is it fair to say, and we can talk about this more next week, but is it fair to say that if you have a professional who is maybe not favorable to your client, they're going to say things not favorable to your client, that you try to rattle us?
Well, we have to try to impeach your findings.
Yes.
Uh, and we can do that without having a personal attack. And so what I would try to do is review very carefully any type of evaluation and
Hmm.
note any type of discrepancies. And let's be honest, we as lawyers are going to try to uh, to show that each little mistake in parenting is a big deal and is some kind of indication of inadequacy as a parent. And
Hmm.
so it is inherently a very destructive process.
Yes, yes. And the way it feels to me is you're trying to rattle me. I mean, that's my word. That may not be your intent. Like you said, it's definitely to try to impeach me, but I don't know that you're trying to rattle me, although I know there are some attorneys who do. But it
Well,
certainly feels that way.
and
Yeah.
let's be honest about this. Not all mental health professionals are
No.
as experienced and capable as you are
Oh,
working with
well.
lawyers and working with judges. Is you have a lot of experience in the field. You have years of working with lawyers, and you're unscathed by that, which is good.
Well, thank you. I didn't That wasn't where I thought you were going. I thought you were gonna say it's not only, because I think this point is well made too. It's not only the mental health professionals that you try to rattle. It's the other party. It's other maybe financial experts who aren't favorable to your client or whoever. I mean, that's just how you guys roll.
It is, and we're usually fairly good at it.
Yes, yes. Oh, yes, you are. You are. But yes, after years, I've learned to not let that bother me. But I can also say, and this is why going back to kids, it is so important to keep the kids out of the courtroom, even chambers, because I agree, most judges interview kids in chambers. But even after all my years' experience, I was in court yesterday. When I get ready for that attorney on the representing the parent on the side that is not where I am most favorable, when they get ready to interview me or question me, I get a knot in my stomach just knowing it's coming, you know. And so think how it is for kids. And thank
Yeah,
God they at least don't do it in the courtroom.
no, and I can't really remember a case in years and years of practice where a judge has allowed a child to be put on the witness stand.
No, no, no. I would agree. Yep. But going back to our kids and what they will do, and parents have to be on top of it. But I have found that kids will eavesdrop, like I said before. I have caught kids listening outside my office door. Now, I've caught parents doing that too, but they really want to hear what's being said. They've told me they've read their parents' texts and emails, things like that. But more often than not, that's not what's causing the trouble. What's causing the trouble more often than not is parents openly talking to their kids. about what's going on in the case, talking about the other parent, talking negatively about the other parent. And I would say most parents aren't blatant in talking negatively about the other parent. It's often they're talking to a friend and forget the fact that their child is in the house, or they think like that dad did that day, that his son was in his room and they really are at the top of the stairs or in the room next to us, and they're listening. They're intentionally listening. And
Well,
parents don't realize it. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that kids, they're intensely interested in what's going to go on in their lives. Where are we
Yeah.
going to be? When are we going to be there? Who's going to pick us up? Who's going to take us places to our games and so forth? So
Mhm.
they're intensely interested in what's going on.
Yes. And they really want to know what that schedule is going to be. And the older they get, the more they want to know that, because they'll have certain friends in the neighborhood of each parent's home. And so they want to know when they're going to be in this friend's neighborhood or that friend's neighborhood. I also have found, since you were talking about who's going to pick them up, I ask kids sometimes, especially if we have kind of a complicated schedule, like if we have a 5-2-2-5 instead of a week on, week off, where they're going back and forth more. I'll ask kids, are you unsure who's picking you up from school that day? And most kids will say, no, I can keep track of who's picking me up on what day. I don't know where my stuff is. They lose they lose track of their stuff. And the older they get, the more their stuff becomes important because they have a favorite pair of jeans or a favorite pair of shoes or just whatever they have. And they want to make sure they have it with them. And when they're bouncing back and forth between households, they worry about losing track of their stuff.
Well, and I can't help but wonder if parents think about the impact of their anger on their children.
Mm,
I would
yeah.
think if they thought about that a little bit more, they would be more inclined to curb that anger or at least curb the expression of it around their children.
Yes, because that anger really negatively impacts your child. And when parents are still really angry with the other, and it's like I was telling class last night, it doesn't have to be anything a parent says. It can be body language, tone of voice, facial expression, just things, going and rolling your eyes and things like that, that we send messages to our kids that I don't like that other parent. I'm fed up with that other parent. I'm angry with that other parent. And it's not healthy for our kids. They have a need to love both of us, both parents. And the greatest gift parents can give their children is permission to love both parents.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the opposite of that is a parent is deriding the other parent, and the child is then put in the role of defender of that other
Hmm.
parent.
Hmm.
And so
And they will defend the other parent.
they will, and I think as they get older, they resent that.
They do. They do. They don't want to have to constantly come to the defense of their parent. After all, they're the child. They shouldn't have to. Well, I have a story to tell today. It's quite a story, in my opinion. But I'm going to wait until we come back. We're going to take a quick break here, but I have an important story to tell when we come back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. So I promised a story when we came back, and this is quite a story. So first of all, we have a dad who is obviously, I don't want to say that he is necessarily, I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this. Sitting outside mom's house, or I'm not saying that he has a private investigator trailing her or whatever, but he is certainly, speaking of snooping, we were talking about kids snooping, he's snooping into what mom is doing in her life. Now, again, I don't want to, paint a picture of stalking, although she is certainly convinced that he is. But here is how this played out. And George, let me say first, and you can speak to this too. The appropriate thing to do if you think your ex has a new significant other or something like that, ask them, talk to them about it. Even if you do it on one of the apps that we use, Talking Parents or Our Family Wizard, any of those, or just by text or email, and be appropriate, but just ask them. And if you can't talk to them in person, which I think just talking in person or picking up the phone and calling is best, but ask the parent, don't ask the child. And what happened, to get to the point here, is Dad, well, I am going to stop there and ask your opinion. Have you not found that parents often go about finding stuff out about the other parent all kinds of other ways than to just ask them?
Oh, absolutely. And what they typically do that is destructive is they interrogate the child about the other.
Exactly. And that's where I'm leading. And I'm going to say, for full disclosure, you have no idea the story I'm about to tell. I have not told you about it yet. I did tell you I was going to tell a good one, but you haven't heard this either. So I'm kind of putting you on the spot. But yes, that's what this led to, was an interrogation of the child, because here's what happened. Dad somehow was snooping, or maybe he was stalking, I don't know. Or maybe he did pay a private investigator, I don't know. He would not tell me how he found out. But he found out that mom has a boyfriend. And mind you, these parents have been divorced for years. I want to say 8 years. but I may be off a little, but not by much. I mean, this is not a new divorce, but mom got a new boyfriend. He lives in a different city, but not far away. But the city has, well, it's Denver. Denver has lots of suburbs. And he not only found out that mom has a boyfriend, but what his name is and what Denver suburb he lives in. He also knows that mom has a cousin who lives in a different suburb. This is all relevant, okay? So stay with me, but this is a good story. In my office last week, to the 10-year-old son, he says something about because mom is wishing to move to Denver. And so he says to the son, "Are you excited about moving?" And the son looks at him kind of funny because it's not been determined yet that he's going to move. And I was caught off guard too because I said, "Oh, I didn't know that had been determined." And the dad says, "Well, I'm objecting to it. I oppose it, but they're asking. So I just thought I'd see how our son feels." And so the kid says, "Yeah, I'm looking forward to it or excited about the idea." And then he says, "Well, who's going to watch you up there when mom is working?" And the boy says, "Well, I think," and I'll call him Charles. "I think," and that's mom's cousin. Okay. So the boy says, "Well, I think Charles, cousin Charles." And dad says, "Oh, are you sure it isn't Jonathan?" And that's mom's boyfriend. And the kid's eyes get big around as they can get. And he looks at me and he looks at dad. And then dad says, "You surprised to know I know about Jonathan?" And at that point, I'm like, "Who's Jonathan?" I don't even know who he's talking about myself. And I'm like, "Who's Jonathan?" And he said, "Mom's boyfriend." And I go, "Oh." And then before I can say, "Okay, this whole conversation is inappropriate," he says, "Yeah, it's a long way from one suburb to the other suburb." And what he's getting at is mom's boyfriend lives in one suburb and the cousin Charles lives in another suburb, and they are apparently not close. And so he's saying to the kid, and of course, again, I'm totally caught off guard. I have no idea what he's talking about. And I go, "What do you mean it's a long way from Longmont to Highlands Ranch?" And he says, "Well, Jonathan lives in Longmont and cousin Charles lives in Highlands Ranch." And saying all of this to the child, putting the child on the spot, freaking the child out because he doesn't even know that dad knows about Jonathan. Not that it's a secret, but the first thing the kid said to me when I took him out of the room so I could have a talk with dad, which I'll tell you about in a minute, the first thing he said is, "How did he know about Jonathan? I don't want mom to think I told him." And I said, "Honey, I was here the whole time. You did not tell him. I did not tell him. So mom's not going to be mad at either one of us." But what was creepy, and again, it's not a secret, it's just creepy that he knew and obviously did not talk to mom, did not talk to me as the therapist to say, "Hey, I happened to find out mom has a boyfriend. I'd like to address it with our son and see how he feels about it. And I also think because of the boyfriend, mom wants to move. And I'd like to know how my son feels about that." Then we could have addressed it all appropriately in therapy. But I'm going to stop right there. The scenario I gave you, and I don't make this stuff up, that happened last Friday in my office. What's your thought? I mean, just pick that apart for me if you would. You got thoughts about that?
I think one thing that is very concerning to me about what you said is invoking anxiety in the child.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. That's exactly what it did. And that's not fair to these kids.
No, and they really don't have the tools to deal with being the defender or the emotional caretaker of either or both parents. And
No.
I think it invokes anxiety in a child,
Hmm.
and that anxiety is harmful to them in schooling and social interactions. And but that's their world, and it makes their
Yeah.
world rock.
Yes. Well, and to your point, you're exactly right. It creates a lot of anxiety. And now he's worried about taking care of both parents because he's worried because it's obvious dad is upset about Jonathan. And then he's worried that mom is going to think he told dad about Jonathan. And
Well,
now
and
he's
the
worried about both parents taking care of both. No, go ahead.
and the expectation that the child not discuss these other people that come into the child's life, that's unrealistic, I think. The
Oh,
child is
yes.
going the child's going to have some sort of feelings or position about these other people, and hopefully if it's a step parent type situation, the child is at least friends with the step parent. But
Yes.
forcing a child into a position of defending a parent or the other parent, the absentee parent,
Hmm.
or being the emotional caretaker of the present parent, that's just so unfair to a child. Uh,
It absolutely is.
and
Yeah.
so sometimes I would see a client who would say, the less contact my ex has with the children, the better. And I would have to advise them and try to revise their thinking and say, absent some sort of endangerment, abuse of a child, a judge is going to make sure that the child has time with both parents.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that would sometimes disappoint the client, or they would say, well, that's just not right. But I had to reform that thinking and say, absent some sort of abuse or harm to the child, the judge is going to make sure that a child has time with both parents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But it should not be the child who is questioned about what the other parent is doing. And I did, because I totally agree with you when you say kids should not be afraid to talk about what's happening in the other parent's life. I did check with mom and I checked with the boy. And I said, did your mom, I checked with the boy first. I said, did your mom tell you not to talk about that? And he goes, no, I just don't think he knows yet. And I
Mhm.
said, okay. And he was afraid mom was going to think he told dad. Well, then I talked to mom and I said, please tell me you did not. Well, I didn't ask it in this way, but the point of my question was, please tell me you did not ask this kid to keep a secret. But she said, no, I simply told our son, I'll let you know when I have told dad about Jonathan. She said that, which is fair. That's fair. I'll let you know when I've told dad. I'll tell your dad and I'll let you know when I do. And mom hadn't told him yet. So I don't think he was afraid to talk about him because actually dad said, do you like him? And the kid said yes. And he was calm, but he was still anxiety ridden over being asked these questions, being put in the middle. He did know that dad did not know yet, but mom had done the right thing by saying, I will tell your dad. And that's an important piece of this is kids will often gossip, and he could have been that kid that comes in and tells dad, you know what? Mom has a new boyfriend, and thank God he wasn't one of those. But if more parents would tell their kids, hey, I'll tell your parent about this, no need for you to get in the middle. I think we need more of that too, just to keep adult issues adult.
Well, it's not really my lane as far as how the children behave and what they need and so forth. Uh, we don't get caught up in that too much as attorneys. But
Right.
we do when the parents can't come to some kind of agreement,
Right.
and no matter our best efforts, we're going to end up in front of the judge. And when we end up in front of the judge, typically the adults are going to experience anxiety. And
Yes, that's right. That's right. And where this affects your work, I think, is you deal with the fallout of this kind of conduct. I might have to deal with the kids and the parents in the moment, but you certainly deal with the fallout. You know, when you come in and you find out, unbeknownst to you, this dad, if your dad's attorney in this case, has done some investigating and then confronted child, not parent, about having a new significant other. Now you have to clean that up before you go into court because, as you said, that other attorney is going to use that against your client.
absolutely. And it's I'm really not sure the best way to introduce a child to a significant other, a new significant other.
Mhm.
But I'm sure there has to be some sort of introductory process.
Yes. Well, first of all, what I tell parents is please make sure that you are fairly certain you're going to be with them for a while before you, or permanently, before you introduce your child. Because I've told the story of my son and how he suffered a loss because I had introduced him to a guy I was dating. And we spent, 6, 8, 10 months together, whatever it was. And then we broke up. And my son suffered a loss. And I swore right then I would not introduce him to another guy until I was sure I was going to marry them. And the next guy I introduced him to was my husband now of 30 years. And so I did uphold that. I honored that promise, but not without having my son experience hurt and a loss. And so there is an art to the timing of and manner in which you introduce kids to a new significant other.
Well, and after 30 years, I would imagine you have your husband fairly well trained.
I do. He'll be the first to tell you I do. Well, and then let's play for a minute like you were mom's attorney and this scenario happened. You are going to be the one raring to use that against dad next time you're in court.
Well, and it brings up concern about stalking behaviors.
Yeah, yes. Because he not only knew his name, he knew where he lived and what suburb in Denver, not just he's in Denver or in the Denver area, but he knew exactly what suburb. And I think that's what freaked the kid out is
It's a
how
little
does
bit,
my dad know? Yeah,
yeah, it's a little bit creepy to me for
right.
that kind of behavior to hear about it. And I think there's a possibility that that would push people back to court.
Yes. Yes. Well, and it may, in this case, it may. Well, because they're going to be going to court, it sounds like, anyway, over the relocation. Because Denver from Colorado Springs will be considered a relocation of sorts. And so I think she's probably going to seek permission. Well, I know she is seeking permission from the court to relocate with the child. And dad has already told me he objects, that he opposes that move, which of course made me think, sitting in my office, then why are you talking about it? Why are you asking the child about it if you know you're going to object? I mean, that is solely placing him in the middle of the conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. I would imagine that this child would experience a fair amount of anxiety. The child's going to be tuned in on some level of what's going on with the parents, their conflict, and the child would naturally feel what's going to happen to me.
Right, absolutely. And more about that when we come back. I also want to share how I handled it with the dad. So we'll talk about this when we come back. But this is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. So let me finish this story by telling you how I handled it with Dad. After I removed the child from the room, and by the way, the child asked to take a break, and I imagine so after all that. I did go back and talk to the dad, and I told him this was completely inappropriate. He put the child in the middle of the issue, and he didn't inform me that he wanted to talk about this, which is incredibly inappropriate because now you've caught both a child and a therapist off guard. But what I really tried to emphasize to him is you need to talk to Mom. If you want to talk about the significant other, if you want to talk about the move to another community, you need to talk to the other parent, not your child. And then if you do want to find out, like he said, because at that point he again said, well, I wanted to know how my child feels about this guy and about moving. And I said, then you need to talk to me first, and we will collaborate on how to bring it up and make sure that we aren't catching the child off guard. Now, all you have done is produce an extreme amount of anxiety in that kid. And, if that was your intent, okay, but that is not okay. I mean, it's really not.
No, and that kind of behavior, that hovering behavior, that stalking behavior, that's very unsettling. And I would imagine if I were the recipient of that kind of behavior, I would have some anxiety about it.
Yes.
Because it seems like Dad can't let go and move on.
Well, and what's really concerning about this is, as I said earlier, I believe they are 8 years removed from their divorce, but Dad is remarried. He's remarried and they have another child. And so why Dad is so worried about what Mom is doing in her life is concerning. But my biggest concern, and the point of our show today, is this is not the way you take care of your kids through divorce. This is a perfect example of what not to do. You don't not speak to the parent about it. You don't not speak to the therapist about it. You don't put your kid on the spot, you know.
Well, it's very disconcerting to me to hear he's remarried, he has another child, and he still is obsessing apparently over his ex,
Yeah.
and that is unhealthy. Sometimes it rises to the level of dangerous.
Yes. Yes. And I'm glad to hear you say that because that was exactly how I felt. And there's some people in our profession who act like it's not that big a deal. Like, yeah, he behaved inappropriately, he handled it wrong, but not that big a deal. I think it's a huge deal. And especially hearing that they've been divorced that long and that he's remarried with another child really makes his behavior concerning.
It really does, and I wouldn't blame mom if she were a little bit frightened by that behavior.
Right, right. And child as well. And to be honest, to some extent, me. I mean, that kind of thing isn't real comfortable for me either.
No, but that's what we have to deal with, and
Yes,
as
yes.
far as it's just very concerning in this day and age that he would still, after 8 years, be obsessing about his ex and embroiling a child in it, and it's just kind of a mess, and it's real inappropriate behavior. And I wouldn't blame mom for being scared or wanting a restraining order or something along that line. I mean, it's very inappropriate behavior. It's very unsettling.
Yes, yes. Well, and here's the biggest part of all is this did nothing for dad's relationship with his son. And that's what we're actually doing in his case is working on improving dad's relationship with child. And he set that back. I mean, not only did he not improve it any, he damaged it, further damaged it. And so the kid didn't even want to say goodbye. After I let dad have it and I went out to get the kid, I said, do you want to at least, because we were at that point out of time, I said, do you at least want to come back in and tell dad goodbye? And he said, no, I don't. And I don't know how he's going to react tomorrow when he sees dad again. We'll find out. But yeah, I mean, that's not the way to improve your relationship with your child. And most importantly, parents out there really have to make a commitment to keeping their kids out of the middle. Don't ask questions of them. Don't put them in the middle. That's how we take care of our kids. Ask the other parent or come to me and ask me or have your attorney ask their attorney or something. But the way that was handled was a perfect example of what not to do and how not to take care of your children through the divorce.
Yeah, and I don't know that the attorneys, without some sort of court intervention, would be able to resolve something like that.
Right, right. But he
To
sure could
take
have asked me and I could have asked mom, you know.
Well, to take someone who is so invested in following up on their ex like that, it is uncomfortable. It is inappropriate.
Mhm.
Uh, it is alarming on some level.
Yes, yes, it is. It's disturbing. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today and why the issue of taking care of our children is in the forefront of my mind right now. Because I just see the harm and damage that is done. Because, like I said, yeah, it produced a lot of anxiety with the kid, but it has further damaged his relationship with his child. This did not help.
No, and it sounds to me like dad needs some serious therapy or counseling.
Yes, I would agree. And unfortunately, that's probably going to fall to me and be part of the work I do with the family. But, and that's okay. I mean, that's what I'm here for. But,
Well, I wonder if Dad would amend his behavior if he were made aware of how damaging it is to his child. If he doesn't amend his behavior when he's made aware of how damaging it is, it's even that much more alarming.
yes, yes. And we'll see, because I did make that point. Like, you have now really pushed him away and caused him a lot of anxiety and angst. And I went back in and said he did not want to tell you goodbye, and I was not going to make him. But we'll see, and I'm happy to update you from time to time and our audience just to let you know what happens. But I hope he can amend it too, because that's just extremely harmful to the child. And, this is one situation, but how many times, George, do you and I see this type of thing?
It's very unfortunate and it's very unfair to the kids.
Yes, but it's far too common.
It is, and it really pushes people back to court. That type
Yes,
of extreme behavior is I would think unsettling to a judge as well.
I would hope so. I would think so, and I would hope so. Yes. But this is what we deal with a lot. And of course, I'm not on a case like you see cases that aren't that bad. I'm not on a case unless it's pretty bad. I mean, but this has to be right up there with the worst thing I've seen happen in my office.
Yeah, it is. It's totally inappropriate. It's totally unsettling, and Dad has some serious issues going on apparently.
Yes. And this is the reason that we have mental health professionals working in the court system.
And as I say, my best friend on a case is a mental health professional, especially one with experience such as yourself.
Yes. Well, thank you. But yes, hopefully we are a help on the cases. And as we talked about earlier, we will delve into next week the different roles that mental health professionals play in court cases.
And they're invaluable, quite frankly.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I did not pay you to say that, but thank you. Okay, we are once again out of time, but thank you, George, for being here.
My pleasure, Dr. Marlene. Always great to be with you.
Yes, good to have you. And we'll see you all next week. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you've been watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll see you next week.
Tune in to The High Road with host Dr. Marlene and gain insight into how to rise above tough circumstances and learn the skills that will help you take the high road in your life, no matter what challenges might come your way, on the next episode of The High Road.